Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, wherever you are here from. We thank you for being here. We're excited today for the conversation we're going to have. I want to thank uh, Erica Bishop for joining us this morning. She had a conversation on Tuesday, and I quickly DM'd her and said, "Can you think you could come on in the next this week or next week so that we can continue the conversation that we've been having on children?" But before we do that, I want to say my name is Leslie Montgomery, and you are tuned in to LKM Kingdom Living Leslie's Lessons Learned. Now, can I tell you, I've been learning a whole lot of lessons. I've been learning more about myself. I've been learning about things I need to change, even with my children. So I'm so excited today for the conversation, for us being in a place that we can come together and we can talk and be unified in what we talk about. So I got my mirror, didn't forget it. And I'm looking in my mirror and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful. I look pretty good, I can say today. Usually I'm saying, oh, my hair ain't this, but I went because I thought I was going to do something special this weekend and kind of got my hair did a little bit. And so this morning, I can't say I got a bad hair day. It doesn't look like it looked on Thursday, but it still looks pretty good. And guess what? So do I. Thank you, Pastor Jackie. And I want to say welcome to everybody that's coming in. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I do want us to make this one confession that I have found to be so pleasurable to me. And that one confession is a life without me would be like a world without color. Can I say that again? And now I want you to put yourself in there. A life without you would be like a world without color. And can you imagine what that would look like if we had even if you look at a rainbow and say maybe the red was taking out the rainbow and you see this big hoop in the middle, clear thing in the middle and said, that is something missing. It's something that's not causing it to be vibrant, causing it to be full of colors. So this morning, I want you to be encouraged and just let you know that all things are possible. All things are possible, and the word tells us that. But don't be down on yourself. Don't look in the mirror and say, is life worth living? Look in the mirror and see a beautiful creation, because that's what you are. You have been designed by the Creator and you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Stop looking at your issues and your problems. Look around them, because the world is a whole lot bigger than what you're going through right now. So I want you to be encouraged and I want you to stay in the faith. And if you're not in the faith, I want you to find out how you can get connected. Because without him, without Yeshua, uh, where would we be? I'd be a hot mess. I already know it. I already know it. I don't even know. I was like, would I be living? I don't know. But I'm glad that he is the love of my life. He is the one that has led me, leading me, and guiding me along the way. That's the song. Sometimes the songs get caught up in my head and can't sing them, but I might say a few words of them. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to say good morning to you ladies. I'm so glad that you're here. You beautiful ladies. You're so beautiful. And I'm so glad that, look, y'all are talented. Y'all are beautiful. Y'all got it going on. And I'm glad that you're gracing me with your presence today and those that are watching. So, Minister Wanda, come on. And she had a birthday, what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And we're still saying happy birthday to her.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Normally, I introduce myself, but I'm not even going to take the time to do that this morning. We're going to celebrate Miss Leslie this morning because today is her day. Today is her day. And I can't share my screen like she can share
Hallelujah.
her screen. But we're just going to take this time. I want everybody to light up wherever you are and just say, Happy birthday, Miss Leslie. I just want you to know that for real. What would life be without you? All
Mm,
the lives that you have changed since you decided to say yes. And our prayer is that you would continue to grow, continue to walk in your purpose, and may this year be a year that was greater than last year, that propel you into greatness of
mm.
years to come. Doors you will be opened to you, places that you haven't even dreamed of going, you will go. And may this day be filled with so much love that you are overwhelmed. And we just want to say happy birthday because we
Thank
love you.
you. Thank you. I couldn't mute you, so thank you.
Aha.
Miss Erica, I'm so glad that you're here today. Tell them a little bit about you. I know you have to go. You're not going to be with us the whole time, but I appreciate you coming on.
Well, as always, thank you. And again, to you, my beautiful sister Leslie, happy birthday.
Thank
And it
you.
is truly a privilege to be here with you all this morning. My name is Erica Bishop of Empowered to Prosper Coaching and Consulting, and the YouTube podcast Evolve and Elevate with Erica. So I am so excited to be here with you all. My mission in life is to help people become their best self by understanding their emotions so they can show up authentically and to be able to express and communicate their needs and wants without any reservation or hesitation. So I greatly appreciate this opportunity being here with you all, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. Look, I had to put this up. My apostle done popped up in the room, and thank you so much, Apostle. I appreciate that. Uh, and everyone else that is wishing me a happy birthday. Uh, Come on, Tiffany, so we can go ahead and get back into the conversation that you have started.
Good morning, everyone. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. First, I want to say happy birthday, beautiful queen. Rick and I and Cam, we love you so dearly, and I'm just honored to be able to be in your presence this morning. But my name is Tiffany Childs. I'm Childs. My husband and I, we are health renewal coaches where we inspire the power of choice towards whole body wellness on the spiritual, mental, and physical approach through consistency, community, and commitment. Um, that's just a little bit about me. Yes, I'm a holistic wellness practitioner as well. I have a spa suite as well here located in the DMV area. My husband and I, we are doing a marriage retreat self-carecation coming up in September. So if any of y'all are interested in it, we have information for you. So
Okay,
I
thank
yield the
you.
mic.
You used the mic. Thank you, everybody. As we continue the conversation from last week, and yes, I got to get my nephew on, and he's like, "Y'all need some men on this show," and we do, and we do. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. So last week we were talking about you matter, and we ended from Tiffany was talking her share, and then she started talking about family and how family view things. I'm gonna leave it at that. And Tiffany, I know you said you had a few things that you wanted to add, and then I'm going to let Erica go for uh, and talk after you get started. Don't
We can
act
go
like
ahead and
you're
start with
muted.
Erica, and then I can jump in.
Well,
Okay,
listen.
so what
No.
I do want to say, go
Uh-uh.
ahead.
Go ahead. Now, Erica,
Yes,
on
ma'am.
Tuesday, we had you had a conversation and you were talking about how you had to ask your children to forgive you and your insight on it. And asked you to come on so you can talk about that. So that's where we're going to start the conversation off. If you remember some of the things you talked about on Tuesday, I thought it was good.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So, of course, in the 1212 community, we've been on kindness, is what we have been speaking about. And the Lord prompted me to go to Ephesians 6 and 4. And I'm going to read it from the New Living Translation. And it says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up in the discipline and instructions that comes from the Lord. And I started thinking just about relationships with parent and child. And being in ministry, being a transformational life coach, I've dealt with a lot of different situations. And one of the things that is most common is breaches in relationships with parent and child or parent and adult. And sometimes it has come in a lot of different ways. And just to kind of share my personal story, um, one is I don't necessarily have a close relationship with my father. My father is alive. He is, within an hour and a half away, but we don't have a close relationship. And this is one of the things I did not get to share on the live, but when my one of my brothers had passed, I was on my way to the funeral with my children. And I wanted to be mad because, he hadn't been in my life. So, now I have to show up and be a support to him. I wanted to be mad about it. And it was one of those things where I was on my way on the highway and the Holy Spirit said so clearly, he said, you're going to have to accept the apology from me because you're not going to get it from him.
Mm.
Because he
That's
doesn't have the capacity to give it to you because he don't know that he did anything wrong. I cried all the way. I cried all the way there. And after we had the funeral, we were sitting down and my son was talking to my dad. And the Holy Spirit said, just look at what is it that you see? And I was like, well, he's talking to Eric. He was like, no. He said, this is the first time your father has had an opportunity to talk to any of his sons. And I say that because I had another half brother that died at 5 of sickle cell. And my brother that had recently passed for the funeral we were going to, he had a severe case of Down syndrome and he was mute and he couldn't speak. And he said, and the Holy Spirit, he was saying, you would have robbed him of the opportunity to have a conversation with his own lineage if you had not come. Because my son is the only other male from my father's descendant. And it was like, okay, God, he said, he doesn't know. And when I went back to the history of how my father was raised and some of the trauma he had experienced, he didn't know. So I had to forgive him for not being present because he didn't know that he wasn't present. He didn't know that he wasn't giving me what I thought that I needed or wanted.
Mm.
And it was just one of those things that the love that I always have had for him, but the love now transcends anything that I thought I missed or did not have. And that was God's way of restoring that relationship that had been breached. Now, moving on to my children, when I was going through my divorce and all the drama that went on with that, sometimes you get in your own stuff and you get in your own head and you're going through your own emotions and you're trying to hold it together. I was new at being a single parent and trying to figure it out. I had children that were 11 and 12 and you're trying to co-parent. And you got all these different things that are happening and you're in your own place of brokenness. And I realized that I wasn't being as kind. I wasn't even being kind to myself, so therefore I couldn't be kind to my children. And it wasn't a situation that it was being irrational or completely, abusive or just, but there were some things that I had dismissed or put aside because I was dealing with me, right? And not as attentive to all of what they needed, but they also didn't quite understand all the stuff that was happening behind the scenes that I thought I was shielding them from
Right.
and protecting them from so that they didn't have to deal with the turmoil of all the other stuff, right? So, the Lord told me, he said, you need to give your children an amnesty day. I said, what is an amnesty day? He said, this is the day where you allow them to say any and everything that they want so that they can express themselves and you not hold it against them. So we sat down, of course, with boundaries. And I said, okay, This is your day to share whatever you want on your heart, on your mind. 'Cause I have some questions for you. And God had given me specific questions to ask. And one of those questions is, how am I showing up as a parent? It did not feel good for some of the things that they shared with me from their perspective.
Right.
And I had to sit and listen, not interrupt. I took notes, and I was not to say anything until they were completely done. And we talked about it. And I didn't share anything to try to justify, but I spoke to them in reference of, okay, this is the position that I'm in. Now, understanding they're 11 and 12, and that's something they're just not going to understand. But I asked just out of curiosity to help them. If you were me, what would you do to help them to understand? These are some of the things, and still not divulging everything, because even though I was going through a divorce, I had to protect, even then, my ex-husband, just because that's their father. You're going to see them every week, and I'm not going to tell you everything.
Right.
But the other part of it is they saw a lot more than what I thought they did.
That's really
So
smart. Yeah.
it was one of those things like, Mom, sometimes you say you're going to do stuff and then you don't do it. In my mind, okay, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, or other things have become a priority. This is the reason why. But in their mind, you said no again. You changed your mind again. And we talked about it. I mean, we talked and we talked and we laughed, we cried, we talked. And what that did is that it opened up a door for true, honest communication with me and my children that we still have today. That my son is now 25, my daughter's 24, and we literally talk about any and everything. And it was a blessing for me because it helped me to put some other things in perspective that I was not seeing and doing unintentionally as a parent. But trying to hold it together, I was harming my children in some ways that I didn't realize that I was doing. And I had to apologize to them and say, I'm sorry. I'm not showing up all the way that I need to be. And that's what really pushed me a lot harder for my own healing journey, because it was never the intent to hurt them in any way, for them to be a casualty of any of those things. And you try your best to protect it, but there is a little bit of fallout. But I had to be more present because I was so caught up in all other things. I had to just, you know what? That stuff is going to be okay. You need to be 100% present for them, because they were in those ages where they were turning the curve. They're becoming teenagers, all the other stuff that comes with that. And it was more important for me to be present with them than for the other stuff that I was dealing with that ended up working itself out anyway.
That's good. I think about when you were saying how you sat yours down and how, man, can I tell you, if you want your heart to be flip flop, let you sit down with your children and let them express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have to put your big girl, I'm saying big girl panties or underwear, drawers for men on to be able to handle it, because it takes you through, believe it or not. And when it takes you through, you have to be able to say, well, am I going to stay here? Am I going to or am I going to say something? Which way am I going to go with this? So it's a key point that you make, that a lot of people actually miss out the wealth on it. There's wealth in that. And why do I say that? Because there's growth for them, growth for us, and it helps us to even become more conscious of the things we do and how we do it. So that I love that. And when you was talking about it, I said, oh, I want her to tell her story because it will help a lot of people. And just the fact that you talked about your father and you talked about how He had never had the opportunity, to really talk to y'all. And if you think about it, he didn't have the opportunity. And like you said, the father said, if you did not go, what would happen? And just the opportunity so many of us have missed because of anger,
Mm-hmm.
being rejected,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, I ain't doing this and I ain't doing that because they want there and they want that. And there's a story that underlines all of it, whether we agree with the story or not. And just like we want others to pay attention to us and understand our story, sometimes we have to understand someone else's story. We have to
Mm-hmm.
understand a lot of times the father, and it says, Father provoked. Children today are provoked. Father's not there. The father's not in leading them, instructing them, guiding them. Some of the fathers is out there. I know one person, him and his father's out on the streets. There's some young men that them and their fathers are in prison together. And that's the only thing that they see and exemplify. But they don't understand the magnitude of where that father came from. Like you said, when you begin to go back and go dive into his history, you can understand how he didn't know how to do it. None of us have a playbook on how to be a parent. Only thing we know is push them out as women. And the men know, let's get her pregnant so she can push it out. And then they might be there and they might not be there.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to add something else. Well, two things. We when we talk about kindness, and sometimes it's the simple things that a parent could say to a child that really puts an etch or a mark in their soul.
Right.
And sometimes it's when we think about how people parent, some parents are dismissive because they don't know what to do in certain
Don't
situations.
know
So
what to do.
I'll just dismiss it and hopefully it'll go away. They'll kind of throw a little bit of shade or throw a little joke out there, and you're trying to be serious and they're trying, but it's because they're uncomfortable with the situation because they haven't
Exactly.
had to deal with it. So I'll just dismiss it or put a joke on it and just let it ride out, and hopefully I won't have to deal with it. And then you have some that no matter what you do, it never feels like it's enough.
Never.
Like you feel like the goalpost is always moving, and you find those, those are you find yourself always trying to be an overachiever because you want to meet their expectations. You made all A's, but they wasn't A plus.
Right.
It's
Right.
those that you had
Right.
one B, and it was like you should have done better. And then you have those that just are not emotionally available at all. And
Right.
that's because a lot of times they don't know how to do that because they didn't have it, right? And as I began to work on me and dig into my own family history and the things that and begin to put the puzzle pieces together, that place of forgiveness rang so much more
Yeah.
because when it said love covers a multitude of sin, that love began to cover all those places where I may have felt rejected, where I may have felt abandoned, where I felt like I had been dismissed, because I knew and understood that there were some places where there had been. See, we have to remember our parents are people too. And they had lives, they had trauma, they had experiences. There's some things they probably would never tell. And everybody has certain
Okay.
coping mechanisms that they put in place to try to get through a situation. It may not be the healthiest thing, but it makes them feel better than what it was in a situation that they had to deal with, right?
Mhm.
And when we begin to understand those things, one, we can begin to have the courage to have the conversation that's necessary, and then sometimes it's okay, let me just forgive and just move on and not hold a grudge and open myself to a root of bitterness or keep myself from healing because I didn't get an apology.
That's right.
And to me, that's a form of unforgiveness for myself. If I
That's
say,
good.
well, I'm not going to heal until you apologize to me, then what am I doing? Why? Why am I holding back my healing just because you didn't apologize? To me, that's a form of being rebellious and opening yourself up to a root of bitterness because you're holding on a grudge to someone because they're controlling your level of healing because they didn't apologize to you. No.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Look, when you talked about the multitude of sin and it being covered by love, and only thing I saw was Yahshua Jesus Christ on the cross and his blood being shed through love for each and every one of us, and how we always want to say we identify with him, but we don't really understand what that looks like. We
Mm-hmm.
don't really understand that love, that the power of love that heals, that causes us to be in a place that we can come beyond what we're in. And sometimes, as we're growing up, because we're not taught that, we fall into so many different categories of what you're speaking about because we don't know what love is. We don't know that maybe that's the only way they know how to love you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that they didn't, because they never been loved, because their mama and their daddies was never there, because they never had a mentor and a parent. You're getting a broken parent, and a broken parent, unless that parent gets healed, just becomes another broken parent, and a broken parent that raises children that become broken children that become broken parents. And so it just follows along as like a river of water. And you stand by the water and you see it just flowing. And it's the same thing that you can either have a healthy relationship or a broken relationship. And when we extend that, we can extend that to the parents first. I'm not talking about just the mama, but I'm talking about the mama and the daddy. The mama and the daddy, how they grew up, the mama and the daddy, how they came together, what kind of relationship they had. A lot of times people are angry because that child looks like the parent
Mm-hmm.
that they don't like. And then
Mm-hmm.
you just likes your
Mm-hmm.
daddy or you just like your mama, and they're hot about it because
Mm-hmm.
they've been rejected, because they've been disappointed, and
Oh
they
yeah.
don't know the hole that they're digging and putting
Mm-hmm.
that child in, because now that child doesn't never I really identifies with itself, because the only thing it keeps hearing is you're just like.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of areas in your life they never portray because they don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm. When we get past the misnomer or the negative aspect that counseling means you're weak because you're not. I value counseling. I do. I've been counseling, have a therapist, because it helps you to dig into some of those places that we tend to cover over for our using our coping mechanisms and we think we're okay. And you said something that was so important. And sometimes when I think about the children, and I'm going out here on the limb, for the woman that tried to trap the man and the
Yep.
relationship didn't work, but you still have the child.
Have the child.
For the one who got in the relationship and you ended up breaking up because he cheated or what have you, but the child is still there. But it is a constant reminder of the hurt and your pain. You have to make sure you're not taking it out on your children. And so if you have not been healed, subconsciously you can do that. And it's not that it's necessarily, and I think a lot of people dismiss it because I didn't put my hands on them. But words are just as harmful as cutting someone with a knife. And I have seen parents, I've received it, I've seen people do it, say things to their children at a very critical moment that it does something to their spirit and their soul.
It does.
And then the child begins to grow up with some resentment, and then you wonder why. Well, what was the change? Why is there a breach? But if you ever let them truthfully, honestly tell you what you did and this is siblings too. You said something that hurt them, and especially when it's someone you trust, you love, you revere, and they say that one thing that cuts you, and they try to dismiss it. But if you allow them to really share how they felt at that moment, you will begin to see healing come forth. But a lot of people don't want to open up that quote unquote can of worms, because that means that we got to start talking about, well, where did it really come from?
Got to get to the root of it.
Because a lot of times our anger is mismanaged and misdirected.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's good. Yeah, and the root of it, those roots usually are so embedded. And then when you look in the mirror, you say, well, how did we get here? And then you start going back. And then there'll be some things that God will reveal that caused you to be the way you are. One of the things you said, and then I'm going to let the ladies, I'm going to let Tiffany go. I think she's about ready now. Um, One of the things is that you were talking about things that siblings said. A lot of times, jealousy from a sibling, because a sibling don't understand its place or their place. They don't understand what's taking place. Now, I'm not making excuses for, there are parents that really show that they have a favorite. There are parents that really show that they don't like a certain child because of issues and situation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those that wholeheartedly want to love their children and want the best for their children, and their children see it. And they always say that the middle child has that middle child syndrome because they're in the middle. You got the baby, you got the oldest, and then you got here I am, and that they go through a whole different aspect of things because they feel rejected on both ends. Well, I was the youngest, and you love the oldest, and I'm not really trying to get into all that, but I'm just bringing up some of these things that we as parents don't realize that our children deal with. Why? Because we're still trying to, as Minister Wanda say, life is life. We're just trying a lot of times to survive. We're just trying to make sure that they have what they need. We're just trying to make sure that they don't have to go through what we went through. There's so many, there's so many gray areas in this thing right here. And it's I just want healing. I want parents to be healed. I want children, not, I'm gonna say young adults to understand the process that their parents went through so that they could have what they need to have to survive.
Mm-hmm.
To survive. So, Miss Tiffany.
That was amazing. Like Erica just pretty much summed everything up, literally. So Erica, I don't know if you saw last week's uh session, but you opened up so much. Like I have so many notes written down right now, but because so much stuff stuck out to me. But also right after that call, my phone blew up because everyone wanted to kind of talk to me about what I was saying. And what I was basically saying was, parents, they have favorite children. And I still stand firm on that. You see many accounts in the Bible, and this openly talks about favorites. Jacob favorite with Joseph, and so forth and so on. But also, um, that opened up conversation, which I had other people do. I did like a week long kind of
Survey.
um, research,
Ah,
you know. So one of my girlfriends called me the same day, and she was literally transported back into her childhood, like very emotional, quivering in her voice and everything because, you know, um, one of her parents blatantly, like on purpose, showed favoritism. And now everything is feeling raw all over again. But she also saw where that's an area she needs to deal with. Not only that, she reached out to her children and asked, "Hey, did you ever feel slighted?" And even though she was doing everything in her power not to leak that onto her children, it was still done. Like all of us leak all day long from our life experiences. Um, every decision that we make, it has a string attached to it. It has a string attached to it. And
that's good.
and all those strings get jumbled up like a ball, like a ball of strings. And we have a responsibility. Like everyone listening on this call, we have a responsibility to do our part to unravel those things. And yes, it takes courage. Yes, Erica, I stand 10 toes down with therapy and counseling in the black,
You just went mute.
sorry, in the black community. I was brought up where everything stayed in the house. You don't go outside telling your business, all of the things. My child tell our business all the time. We are thrown on the bus constantly, like for real. But while we were keeping everything hidden and all of our emotional baggage and things we struggled with, we were taught to hold all that stuff in. We weren't allowed um to have a voice. Now, if you were, you are one of the blessed ones, but it wasn't often. And our counterparts, our Caucasian people, they went to therapy. They were able to sit and talk this stuff out and work it out. So um so we really need to normalize therapy. I mean, yes, God in therapy, it works. Just because you have a therapist don't mean God is not in the picture. All of us on this earth, we have God put us here for something. Everything has a purpose. Doctors are here for a reason. Surgeons, therapists, anesthesiologists, janitors, like everybody has a responsibility. And therapist is of God. It is. So let's
But let
start
me stop you
normalizing
right
that.
there. Let me just stop you real quick. If we look at Moses, and when he took them out in the wilderness and they stood all day and all night to tell them their issues. If we look at Deborah sat underneath a tree and she listened to their issues. And the word talks about physicians. It talks about it. So I just wanted to put that in there because the church has taught us that only thing we need is to pray. Just pray. It's going to work out. Just pray. And that's not even scriptural. You got to have a balance. And Elohim, like you said, put everything in place. So by putting everything in place, that means he knew we was going to need, especially after his first encounter with Adam and Eve. He's like, no, he did it before that. I'm just teasing. But yeah, so we can't get caught up in the fact that uh, from the church realm, we were taught just pray about it. Everything's going to be all right. I remember an incident with my, and we can go back to this. You was talking. My mother, her and the neighbor across the street was having a little battle, and she had went out and she said, "Don't go over there for nothing." And here I was trying to open up a can, and I cut my hand, and I went over there. And when she came home, I got a whooping of my life. Now my hand is split open, but I got a whooping because I went over there and she didn't want her to know nothing about what goes on in our house. So I understand that. I understand that we have everything we need if we take a moment and be ourselves and understand it's okay. It's okay if you need a therapist. It's
No,
okay
no.
if you uh, feel down and out and you need somebody to talk to. Never feel like you have to go through something by yourself. That was not even how we were created or developed to be. Everybody needs someone that it might be something minor that they can take and talk to. If you don't have the money, there are programs out there that will fund you to get the help you need. Don't stay around broken. Don't stay around feeling like you can't go on because of life situations. That's why you have a lot of people that's broken now. That's why you have a lot of people that's mentally on the street. There's doctors out there. There's lawyers out there because they broke. They couldn't take it no more, and they decided to give it all up and live on the street and will not come back into society because they're so broken, which is a whole nother conversation. I don't even know how I got all there. But some of these people that are out there are moms and dads that had walked away because they couldn't handle it anymore because they never got the proper care that they needed so that the substance within them could be built back up. So we have to be understand. We have to be understanding from both sides. We have to be understanding as parents, and when our children tell us how they feel or what it looks like, that we understand that they have emotions too. And what happens is we move in our emotions, and our emotions is what builds us, not our characteristic. Because most times people have characters that's real bad off. Why? Because their emotions is real bad off. And sometimes people will come and make like their character is okay, and you can look through that and say, something ain't right. So go ahead, Tiffany, and then we're gonna let Wanda go. Well, go ahead. We're gonna let Wanda close us out because I know Erica has to go in a few minutes. So finish your statement, or did you forget?
So no, well, I did forget. I did forget, but it came back. So out of those people that I spoke with, I encouraged them to talk to their children and just find out. And you know the saying when they say, no matter what you do, somebody's always going to find something wrong with it. Regardless of what you do as a parent, like we can try to cross every T's and dot every I. The, something is still going to always be skewed, and I'm gonna say always because what everyone was saying last week was about perspective as well. And there's a thing called maturity. And a lot of times children don't really read the room properly, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's a reason why there are levels to the certain book, books you allow your children to read, TV shows, movies, everything is on the scale system, right? Now, it's very questionable now because rating systems, yeah, but everything has a level. And like, I use myself and how I perceive my parents and how later on in life, adulthood, now I'm correcting a lot of those thoughts and visions that I had of them. And many of them wasn't even, all of them was pretty much jaded for the most part. And, you know, I know what I took my parents through, and I can, like, I still believe that, you know, we have our favorites. Now, I'm not saying say it on live TV, because some parents just not, well, don't let your children know that. Like, don't just be saying it, but I'm just saying, you know, I believe all of us, you know, sit on favorites. And it would be messy to let them know who your favorite is. But I just believe that that is, you know, true. But anyway, come back to everyone that I checked back into, all of the children felt as if the parents had a favorite child. I mean, sibling.
Mhm.
So, so that was just interesting, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
If I could add something, I think when we share what we appreciate about our children, it helps remove some of that. But and I think sometimes as parents we don't do that enough, to say I love you because this is what I see in you. And I know that I have grown definitely to be very intentional about sharing and speaking into their spirit. I love you because you're smart, you're kind, you're courageous, you have a boldness about you that I didn't even have, that I wish I, and I've even told my children, and there's one thing I've told both of them, but especially my daughter. I told her, I said, girl, if I was your age, you'd be my best friend. You'd be my home girl because I like you. Because you are this, and this. And it's those things that I think that are very important for our children to hear and for us to say. And when we think about the stuff that we did or did not hear, we have to make sure that we do those things for our children as well. I just want to add that part. I love you all. I hate I have to
Love
go,
you.
but
Thank you
I
so
love
much.
you all so much.
You've added
I'll
so
take
much
care.
value. We appreciate you. Have an amazing day and a safe trip.
Thank you. You have an amazing birthday, Queen.
Thank
All right,
you.
love you all. Take care.
Bye bye. So this is good. This is good. Wanda, go ahead. You've been kind of quiet, and I know you've been taking notes and stuff over there.
Yeah.
What?
There's so much.
Thank
So
you, everyone that has wished me happy birthday. I really appreciate it. Sorry, Wanda.
no, it's fine. There's so much in here. We may have to continue it next week. But mental health is so important. And I love the fact that within our community, we are recognizing now how important mental health is and taking care of our mental health. Um, I remember my daughter said to me, I said to my oldest daughter about the children. I was like, I think this one need therapy. She was like, Mom, we probably all need therapy. And I'm like, you're right. And I started thinking about that because uh, how the divorce affected my children and what my family went through because of the divorce. And a lot of times, as a parent, or let me put it this way, as a wife, I'm dealing with it from the wife's level now, having to be full time and single parent and just trying to parent, take care of the house, keep everything functioning and moving like it was when there were two parents, and we don't think about how it's affecting the children. Sometimes you don't see it, but then in my case, you definitely see how this event is affecting all of your children. And so there are a few things I want us to think about today before we leave. Uh, if perhaps there is someone who is going through a divorce or there are things going on in the family dynamic, get the family counseling. Please do. It's very important for their mental health. And the other point, as I was sitting here thinking, and while I can't go back do this, I want to be very intentional with my children before they start having children.
Right.
And I want them to understand, and I pray Yahweh allows me to do this. Before they start having children, I want them to be in therapy. And then when they get that significant other in their lives that they're going to marry, or they begin to feel, I love you and we want to have children, I need them to do some research and find out how they were parented before they have children. And think about how that person was parented and how they were parented. Because as Miss Erica has said, and as Miss Tiffany has said, how they were parented will affect how they parent their children. And we got to be more intentional about having our children. We can't just be, I love you, so I want to have your baby now. We can't do this. We cannot do that anymore because we are having children and we're broken, or we come from a place where we weren't parented well because they didn't know how to parent, and then we're having children.
Can I add to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I want to have his baby because he cute. Or I want her to have my baby because she cute.
She fine.
She
Yeah,
fine. Nothing else. Just because they gonna make pretty babies.
yeah, yeah. We have to
Pretty
be.
babies,
Go ahead.
pretty babies with good, pretty babies with
Yeah.
good hair.
With good hair. With good
Good.
hair. Right? Right. Right. And we have to, if we to change what we've done, we have to talk, we have to have these conversations with our children. Don't just go out and having babies. Let's find out the history. Find out the history before we start having babies with these children, because I realize I can just look at my children. I have 8 of them. And if we look at my background was 2 older parents who could not have children, who wanted to have children, so they adopted. But I don't think they looked at the fact, are you able to love this child properly or these children properly?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How were you loved? How were you parented? These are things we have to consider. And then I had babies with men. Love them. I do love the exes. Yahweh be praised. But now I got to look at how they were parented, and they weren't parented healthy. I have 2 fathers that I had children by who did not know how to be a father because their
Right.
fathers weren't fathers. One was super stern, a male chauvinist, and on the other side, one was just, I just got to, I'm a dad. I got to put food on the table. I got to pay
Mhm.
the bills, and I drink on the weekend, and I'm not available to my children. And they were kind of raised by their older brother who stepped in to be father. So now I have 2 fathers who don't know how to be fathers. And I have children now. So how are my children going to parent? And so as the mother, and might have to involve the fathers, I have to sit down with my children and talk to them about parenting, because it has to stop here. And we have to take the initiative to look at our past. Like Miss Tiffany is saying, we have to have these hard conversations. I have to have the hard conversation. And as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to hear what they're going to say about me. Because, like Miss Erica said, you got to listen without trying to justify but I you really were like just doing the best you could to try to make the family dynamic work. And you're already dealing with guilt because you're at work, you're doing church, you don't have money to. Do you know last week, as I was celebrating or trying to celebrate my birthday, all I could think about was how many years I wasn't able to give my children the best birthdays. And sometimes all I could do was pick your favorite meal, and that's what you get for your birthday. And I told my oldest son, one of the reasons why I want to be successful is because before I leave this earth, I want to make sure they have a birthday or birthdays that are memorable,
Mm,
right? So I say that to say, even having that hard conversation, I already deal with some guilt as a parent.
yeah.
And to have those, sit down and have those conversations with them, they might be uncomfortable. We might not want to do it, but they are necessary so the healing can begin. They can hear your side of it. And like Miss Tiffany said, it does take a place of maturity. And so you might have to have it now with the children that are, because mine are stair steppers. They're from the 30s to one is about to be 19 in May. And so I might have to have this conversation twice when the 19-year-old gets some sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Where he mature a little bit. Because right now it ain't gonna go well. I already know what that's gonna look like because of what his mindset is like right now. But we all must have these conversations because, like Tiff says, we talked about perspective. Even though I felt like I didn't favor a child, I can guarantee out of all 8 of them, everybody has an opinion of who they thought was mommy's favorite. So let's let the healing begin in our families. Let's sit down and look. Let's sit down and have these conversations with our children so the healing can begin. Let's help our children have children better. And if we need to go to therapy now as a family, let's go to therapy now as a family because we just want to be healed. We want to build. We want to grow. We want to have the relationships with our children that Yahweh wants us to have. And we want our children to have better relationships, whole, healthy relationships with their children.
And that's true. I know you have something to say, Tiffany. There's another area that I want to encourage parents is intimacy. We have to really start talking to our children about what intimacy is and that it's not like the world has painted it, that you just go have sex. Intimacy starts way before sex. And there are children out there, because I remember thinking this when I was young that I needed to do this, that don't feel love, mainly women. And they say, I'm going to have me a child so that I can be loved. And we have to deal with that. Because then they have this child, and if this child is a wayward child, they're devastated. Because the love they were looking for, they still didn't get. And the love that an adult needs, a child, or I'm gonna say teenagers, because that's when that thought starts. If your home is reckless, if you feel neglected, if you feel like you're not loved, a lot of times in your mind you're gonna say, I'm going to have a baby and that baby's gonna love me. That baby might not love you. And that baby cannot love you on the level that you're at and the love that you need. That baby can only love you from a baby's perspective. And we really have to start diving into that. It's very emotional. This conversation today is very emotional because there's so many men and women that are dealing with these issues. And in the our community, we have to remember that our fathers, they all came from slavery. They were broken by the slave master. And the slave master taught them how to be parents because they wanted them to parent their child, that their child will submit not to them, but to that slave master. So we have this conversation is really I guess I don't in depth. We really have to continue to uh, address it because the only way healing is going to come is that when truth comes. They that worship me must worship me in spirit and in truth. If you're walking around broken, if you're walking around feeling that you can't forgive yourself because the way you parented, I want to encourage you today to give yourself some grace. You raised your children how you knew to raise your children. We don't have a handbook, especially not in the Black community. You just have them children. Make sure you put food on the table. Make sure they eat. So I want you to know today that it's deeper than that, and that you whatever you have done as a parent, you can't go back and change it. And when I say you can't go back, you can't go back to when they were children and try to change it. It's just like when you're 30 years old and you say, um, man, I wish I was back in my 20s, but you can't go back there. So you got to begin to transition that thought and begin to live from that space. Go ahead, Tiffany.
I had a question for Minister Wanda, but what I wanted to say was, we go through life, and like you said, because I know people that said, I just want a child because I know my child will love me and all of the things, and like, so flesh is gonna fail you. People gonna fail you. The people you love the most is going to disappoint you. It's just part. I mean, it's just how life is. So just stop saying that. I can't believe she hurt me. Listen, everybody's gonna hurt you. Everybody's gonna fall short from whatever you wanted. The only thing, the only person that can love you to no end is God, Yahweh, Christ, the Lord, however you name him, right? Get your love from him. Like, for real, honestly. God will never fail you. Ever. Never, ever, ever, ever. You might be upset with some of the stuff that you go through, but God will always love you. So
Because he
get
always
your
has a
love.
plan.
Yes. It's always a plan. Wax on, wax off. We don't understand what's going on in the middle, but God is working it out. And I had a question so back to the birthdays.
The birthdays.
Right. She said she wants
Oh, our children.
right, for the children. Did any of your children share with you that they had a problem with the way you celebrated their birthdays?
Actually, when we talk, that's going to be one of the things we talk about. So far, no, but I wonder if they would even be honest enough to say it to keep from hurting me. You know, um, yeah. So when we do talk,
And
there are
that's
some things we might talk. That might be one of them. Yeah.
because when you said that, I was like, all I want is spaghetti dinner. That's it. Like, I was, I wasn't really tripping over the other. No, honestly, like, so I say that to say, like, definitely had that conversation because you may have to let yourself off the hook because in your mind, you're thinking, hey, like, I didn't do A, B, and C, but they probably didn't even want that and really saw that as very endearing. I remember when I got, why is everything surrounded around food? I need to delve down into that. But if I brought, if I brought like a good grade
You close
home,
to Alicia.
if I brought a good grade home, like all I wanted was a box of cereal. I can't remember what, but it was almost like some type of oatmeal something. They was kind of like square. Well, anyway, all I wanted was a box of this oatmeal cereal just to eat. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bring good grades home and I'm gonna get this. It's like it.
That was a simple
So
thing.
yeah, so I
Some
just
children are
say
simple. When I say simple, I'm not talking about simple. It doesn't take a lot. You know, a lot of children, it
so
doesn't.
yeah. So I'm kind of curious. Like after y'all had that conversation,
What they say.
can,
Now, I will
can you
say,
let me know about the
yes, I will.
parties? Like
We
if
might
it
have to,
mattered to them, because I'm just
yeah,
curious.
yeah.
Um, I did ask my mom. I said, "Mom, would you be willing to come on the show?" Because she was like, "Well, what were y'all talking about?" And I told her. She said, "Nah, nah." She said, I don't even want to relive that
Wow.
part." So I was like, "Okay, granted, I get you. You good." But like I would really want to encourage so one of the things that I do at the end of my day, I always check in and I question my motives of why I feel certain ways. Um, and I just do a checklist because that basically, um, and be true and honest with yourself. Like that basically creates something where you can see areas in your life that you may need to work on. And it doesn't feel good all the time. So I know society gen- generally want us not to deal with our emotions, and it kind of make us a certain way where we just sweep it under the rug, like just like really really see those areas that need to be worked on and just start unraveling the string
Yeah,
one
yeah.
string at a time.
That's good. That's good. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I don't know if you wanted to say anything to that, Minister Wanda. Well, we passed the top of the hour.
Thanks
uh,
to Tiffany.
no,
Go ahead, go
No,
ahead, go
it
ahead.
was good.
no,
Everything
it's
was
just a
said.
good conversation,
Mm.
and it's something. And while we talk about it, we're getting healing from it. It's opening our eyes to things we might need to change or things we might need to do differently, speak differently, and uh,
Then we go on the Chuck E. Cheese. We
I
going
know
to
that's right.
all 8 of them.
oh gosh, that's true though, and I always try to make sure my daughters had good parties, and they had different personalities, so their parties was different, but when I think about it, I didn't have a party that I remember until I was 16 for my 16th birthday. And then after that, it was the parties I gave myself. But, it didn't change the, that didn't matter. But some children like, oh, I wish I had that when I was young. Oh, I wish, it's a thought because you see someone else getting it and it looks so nice and so rich. But I want to encourage you, Minister Wanda, that you've done a great job. I don't even know your children. Only name I really hear is Fat and Gigi, you know. but you have done to be here and able to talk about it is amazing. to be able to say that, yeah, I might not have done everything right. And my hat's off to you. You had 8 children. We're not talking about one or two. You had to cuddle, you had to comfort, you had to love. And even in your broken times, you had to still pour into them. And I just want to honor you for that and applaud you for that. Because even in our broken times, we still have to pour into our children. And you might be crying and they never see a tear. They don't know that you're broken. And I know that my daughter said, my youngest, so somebody, I never seen my mom don't cry or something like that. And I was like, no, that's not true, you know. But the fact that we had to, I still had to nourish them. And I still, in my disappointment and in my brokenness, I still had to hold up and push my shoulders back and act like we got this. So I'm trying to get your godmom on, so maybe you can reach out to her and get her on next Sunday, so we can continue this conversation. I think it's a good conversation, and I think that it's one that will bring much healing, and much healing. Healing is needed today. This We are in such a broken place as a as a uh,
We seen you cry.
so, but yeah, yeah. Let's continue this conversation. I don't know where this conversation is going,
A
but I
place of
know
healing
that
is where it's going. It's
huh,
a place of healing. It's we need to heal.
we
We
need
dealt
to
with the
heal.
forgiveness. Now we need to heal
How
in
about that?
regards to dealing with our children. You
Yeah,
know, um, yeah, because like you said, we're talking, I'm learning, and it's like kicking me in the chest. It 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 feels good, and then sometimes it doesn't because uh, I believe Yahweh is just showing us this is the next step. This is
it's the
the
next
next place
place.
we have to
Yeah,
go. Like you said, give yourself some grace. Even when you were
grace.
talking about crying, I was like, oh, they didn't see me cry. They, whew, it's probably some stuff I should have held, but I couldn't. I mean, they've seen me cry or they've heard me crying. I remember one time the rent, I got a letter and the rent was being raised, and it was being raised so much that I had no idea how I was going to do it. And Aaliyah, my daughter that's in the Navy, she walked in on me. I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe because I couldn't. I was like, how am I going to do
In
this?
that box.
Yeah, just put food on the table and pay. When I say everything, me. And she just hugged me. It was like, Mom, it's going to be okay. You know, give yourself some grace. So this
Yeah.
is something that we got to deal with. And I think it's an amazing topic.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to let everyone go. I think of yeah, like Ashley said. Ashley, y'all hear me say, I don't want Ashley to come on here. She'd be tearing me up, you know. And Adrian's the opposite. Mom, you're just so great. She's like the cheerleader, And I'm like, I was like, she just blocked everything out. That's the only reason why she able to say all that. But thank you, ladies, for being here. Tiff, I don't know if you'll be able to be here again next week, but we would love for you to be here so we can continue this conversation that you have started.
I might have one eye open next week
What
too.
I know,
That's
I
fine.
know, I
I'll
know.
be.
Yeah, thank you so much. But uh ladies and gents, please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. Healing is at the top of the menu. I'm gonna say the top of the menu, and every aspect of healing. We cannot go on like we've been going on. Some of you might be in a great place. Everything is great, but for those that are not, we can't go on any longer like that. It's too much pressure that you're putting on yourself because you don't forgive yourself. You feel like you want this best parent. You didn't give them their best. You feel about all these things, but it's as Tiffany was speaking about. Oh, never mind, can't remember. But I want you to know that there is a better place. There is a better place. Thank you, daughter. Thank you. And that's all we want you to know, that there is a better place. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I did want to put a plug in there. Are there any therapists like that you know of in the comments? Like, if anyone wanted to reach out.
Ashley.
Okay.
Yeah, Ashley.
Ashley,
I
and
don't
then
know.
Dr. Mathis, Dr. Anissa
Okay.
Mathis. Yes.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for that plug.
How would one get in contact with Miss Ashley
Miss
or
Ashley, she
Dr.
can put it in
Mathis?
the chat.
Okay.
She's there. She can put it in the chat. But as she puts it in the chat, she probably like, uh-uh. But thank you, everyone, for being here. She'll put her information in there. And we want you to know that life is worth living, even in these tough conversations. Because these tough conversations we're having is not about our children, it's about us. And when we're facing who we are and what we've been, you can't do anything about the past. The past is gone. When you live in the past, what's the saying? You're depressed, and when you live in the future, you're anxious. But when you're right where you are, you're in peace. And we want you to live in peace. We want you to live in the grace. And we want you to know that without a shadow of a doubt, He loves you. And He's not holding anything against you, not one thing. So you got to let it go and stop holding yourself hostage because of what you did not do. And until next week, I pray that everybody has an amazing day. And Father, we ask right now that you would cover the minds, that you would deal with the hearts, and that those that are broken and feeling like there is no hope, that you would release your angels to minister to them right where they are. We don't want them to leave this space and not know that they're covered, that they're surrounded by you. We thank you that you're surrounding and you're covering, and that even through the process of the from becoming broken to becoming healed, we thank you that you're going to walk us through the process, and that we would be better than we are today, that we'll be stronger. When I say stronger, stronger mentally, or should I say stronger spiritually, mentally, and physically, that we might carry out your plan and realize it's really not about us, it's about you in the kingdom. And for this, we give you praise, we give you honor, and we thank you for it. In your precious name, Yeshua HaMashiach, we thank you for loving us enough to shed your blood. Hallelujah. And for this, we give you praise and honor. In your precious name, we pray. Amen. So, till we meet again, everybody have an amazing day. Know that we love you, and that even in the midst of it all, there's still hope. And in the hope, it's in the Word, is in the Father. And if you go to Him and allow Him to heal you, you'll never experience things the way that you have, because then you become a mature person. So you handle things differently. Yeah, when I was young, I used to think, oh, when I got saved, everything was going to be changed and everything was going to be over. And it didn't. That was not true. The truth was life still life's. Life is still life. And it's just different because you're not doing it by yourself. So I love you. I must be quiet now so we can get off of here and everybody can go about their day. And those that are in Passat, I proclaim Passat, and I pray
Yes.
that you have an amazing 7 days coming up
Yes.
in the midst of the Father.
Yes.
Shalom.
Shalom.